The NXIVM cult leader, Keith Raniere, another piece of breaking news today, the NXIVM sex and slavery cult leader, Keith Raniere, he just got sentenced today to 120 years in prison. Yay. So that's good. He did some pretty terrible things because he had his day in court. He's 60 years old, had his day in court. And it was a parade of women and media and his victims. Apparently, they didn't even realize how many victims he had. They had to delay the court hearing, and they're even considering having a second courtroom because of all of the victims that showed up to testify against him. Raniere, he founded the NXIVM cult in 1998, and he was sentenced in Brooklyn on Tuesday. Among those who spoke was a Dynasty actress, Catherine Oxenberg's daughter. Raniere recruited over the years more than 17,000 people to NXIVM, 17,000 people. He ran a subsect in the cult where women were branded with his initials. I'm sure you guys have heard about that. He branded them with his initials, and they even had to ask for permission to eat, to do anything. They were referred to as slaves, and they had to refer to him as their master. He apparently raped girls around age 15 and younger. He brought a lot of these girls from Mexico to the U.S., according to his indictment. And he maintains that he's done nothing wrong and he never raped anyone. But the cult still operates, and many of his supporters, I can't believe that he does have supporters, but apparently he does. They attended the court today, too. And just a few of the, I guess, the shocking statements here. A couple of these shocking statements here is that Raniere was told that he was treating women as a human science experiment. One of the victims called him an entitled little princess and a sexual predator. Raniere's lawyers asked that he be sentenced to 15 years. But after telling the judge that he had no remorse, if you can believe it, he heard dozens of women's testimonies, okay? And he still said that he had no remorse for these crimes because, he says, he didn't commit them. Judge Nicholas Garofis handed down this sentence, which means he'll spend the rest of his life in prison. He branded Raniere as ruthless and unyielding, and particularly egregious because he targeted the young girls and women. The Judge Garofis, said to him, "The brave victims are liars." Mr. Raniere remains totally unmoved, and he did not demonstrate remorse in the slightest. So the judge handed down an unusually high sentence in the federal court in Brooklyn today after hearing dozens of these very terrorizing and anguished statements by victims of this sex trafficking conspiracy. And, finally, justice is served because this is something that has been going on for a very long time. Just a couple more of the highlights. Some women called him a monster, a parasite, a psychological terrorist. One woman said, "I became unreachable to my parents, my brother, my friends, until I had nobody to worry about me. He knew things that mattered most to me and what I feared and used that against me." Raniere was convicted of racketeering conspiracy, wire fraud conspiracy, forced labor conspiracy, sex trafficking conspiracy, and attempted sex trafficking, but not rape for some reason. So that is Keith Raniere, and he is sentenced to 120 years in prison for his sex trafficking and all these things, all these crimes in this NXIVM cult, which, by the way, the NXIVM cult was, it's billed as basically a personal empowerment, a woman's personal empowerment organization, which is crazy. And when you hear celebrities and when you hear the left, they scream out, "Oh, sex trafficking, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It's just some myth. It's just a conspiracy theory." But then we see people like this go down and the whole thing is exposed. There goes my pen again. The whole thing is exposed. These are the things that are the smoking gun. I mean, how many more stories do we have to hear? And how many more people have to be exposed and go down before we understand that this whole sex trafficking situation, it is real, it is prevalent, and It's happening right before people's noses. So hopefully more of these people get indicted. But yes, that's Keith Raniere, sentenced for 120 years. And my prayers go out to the victims.